There's something special about a truly isolated horror setting. The Nostromo in Alien, Outpost 31 in The Thing, and the USG Ishimura in Dead Space. Well, you can add the Beta D to the list as Still Wakes the Deep crafts up a contorted setting drenched in seawater, oil and blood. Switching out the quaint English countryside for an oil rig off the coast of Scotland, the Chinese Room has produced a taut, tense and frequently terrifying horror experience that isn't to be missed. Hello there everyone, it's Aaron here from Push Square and I was on reviewing duties for Still Wakes the Deep, so let's delve into things in my PS5 review. The Chinese Room has always been a master of the mundane, and I mean that as a compliment. 2014's Everybody's Gone to the Rapture expertly captured a perfectly normal village and doused it with a bit of the ethereal surreal. That same deft touch is applied here in Still Wakes the Deep, a linear horror experience that's far more focused and all the more entertaining for it. It's Christmas 1975 and Kaz McCleary is trying to get off the Beta D. There is some light narrative mystery as to why Kaz is aboard the rig and why he's trying to leave it, but before he can jump aboard a helicopter to safety, something happens. Now there's a lot of mystery and uncertainty splashing around the premise of Still Wakes the Deep, and since this is a pretty short experience, about 5 hours in total, I recommend going in as blind as possible. I actually really enjoyed discovering what was going on with the Beta D and how far the horror would go during my playthrough, so for that reason I'm going to try and keep this review as spoiler free as possible. The first thing that will strike you in Still Wakes the Deep is how it captures its setting with pinpoint accuracy through both near immaculate photoreal presentation and its incredibly authentic voice work. As you start the game, you'll have a chance to explore the small cabin rooms of your co-workers, and here's where we get a snapshot into the time period and the characters in the most naturalistic sort of way. From the posters on the wall to the ruffled bed sheets, you can immediately sense the lived-in nature of the Beta D, and you can practically smell the mustiness of its tartan carpets and the pang of salty air through its every hallway. I would love to see a horrorless version of this rig so that I can just explore it at my own ease, taking in every detail. The Chinese Room has sunk a lot of time into ensuring that the Beta D is believable. It works hand in hand with the horror too. Still Wakes the Deep does have a gnarly thing or two to show you during its runtime, but a lot of the horror is in what you hear and what you assume is ahead of you. Delving deeper into the Beta D is a daunting task before you include all the scary things that go bump in the night. The rig has an oppressive sense of claustrophobia that will keep you on edge before the first drop of blood is even spilled. You'll notice too how unapologetically Scottish the game is, with its genuine and natural sounding accents not often featured in games.
Shut your gob, you Ned prick!
With myself coming from the bonny lands of Scotland and even close to the city that some of the characters are from in this game, it's exciting to hear natural Scottish dialect without it ever being hammed up to Braveheart levels like is usually the case. It's a brilliant touch of authenticity that goes a long way to selling the setting.
Remember, life is like football. It's not over
until the final whistle. Aye. You're a Barnsley fan, so you're pretty much fucked from the off, right?
When Still Wakes the Deep starts to lean into the weird, it's here that I was really surprised by how hard the Chinese Room is going for horror. It's filled to the brim with nail-biting sequences, pulpy body horror, and audio design that does a lot of the heavy lifting on its own. My mind immediately goes to those horror movie classics that I mentioned as I inched my way through the hallways of the Beta D, not just through the aesthetics of the game, but also the pacing of which the Chinese Room doles out its scares. It's here though that I suspect there will be a split for players. The Chinese Room's previous games have often been derogatively labelled walking simulators, and in a lot of ways that could be applied here to Still Wakes the Deep. Granted, things are a little more involved here than what you'd find in the Chinese Room's previous work, as you'll be climbing up walls, shimmying along ledges, and even making a jump or two. However, this is a strictly linear experience with copious amounts of yellow paint clearly labelling where you should be going at almost every point in the game. There's even an update coming down the line to reduce the amount of yellow paint, so clearly the devs are aware of it. The gameplay then never supersedes the focus on story or setting, but I would argue that I would rather the Chinese Room focuses on what it does best than forcing in tedious gameplay mechanics. A perfect example of that exact thing happening though are the stealth sections, which are the weakest part of the game by far. After a couple of similar encounters, the limited margins for error become overtly apparent, and the horror loses some of its sting. It's quite tough to die or fail in Still Wakes the Deep, so if you think too hard about it, you'll start to see the rails leading you forward. However, I have to say, it's never boring, and while stealth sections can be trite mechanically, narratively there's always something to be scared of there. This is also where the visual and immersive features come into play. For one, the sound design is spectacular. Whether it's the creaking hull of the Beta D, the constant flickering of rain from outside, or even the haunting screams from afar, there's a palpable sense of place and danger at every turn. Even the soundtrack masterfully balances when to stay quiet and when to come in with its eerie sense of dread. This really is one of those games that you should be playing with headphones. There are also a selection of gameplay settings to personalise your experience, such as controller changes, audio customization, impressive haptic implementation, and a quality and performance mode option. I opted for the smoother frame rate over higher resolution, but Still Wakes the Deep is still a fantastic looking game. The visual and audio experience does a lot of the heavy lifting for the lacking gameplay, so while it might not be as engaging as something like Alien Isolation, it still does a lot to keep you on the edge of your seat. Chases and some underwater sequences are incredibly effective, and there are a fair few moments that will have you squeezing that DualSense as the game itself tightens its grip around you. It has that classic horror game sense of, oh, please don't make me go down there as well, which is exactly the kind of thing that I love in the horror genre. Whether it's the oil-filled bills of the rig or the direction of some haunting hills and hulking thumps, the Chinese Room never quite lets go once the tension starts ramping up. And it always keeps things fresh visually as the Beta D morphs around you in some grotesque ways, again blending the mundane with the surreal. So Still Wakes the Deep may not be around for long, but it'll have an ironclad grip on you across its runtime. There's a clear inspiration here from horror movie classics such as Alien and The Thing, and I adored seeing those inspirations play out through its highly detailed setting and salt of the earth cast of characters. It may not be the most engaging gameplay experience on the PS5, but the Chinese Room smartly lays a solid foundation in the Beta D and its gaggle of staff, meaning that its viscerally focused horror will linger in your mind long after the credits roll. Well everyone, thank you for tuning in to our review of Still Wakes the Deep, which launches on the PS5 on June 18th. Let me know down in the comments if you plan to pick this one up, and while you're down there, why not leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and even better, subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content just like this. Anyway folks, thank you as always, I really do appreciate you, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.